Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa Life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The Spa and Spa Life, the SPA, is for seek power always to do that deeper work that you are here to do in the world. I am so fired up for our next guest that we have, which is Sarah Apgar, who is the founder of FitFighter, a strength solution for everyone ages 8 to 80. And she originally designed her signature training tool, the Steelhose. And for those of you who are watching versus listening, I just have to hold up one of these. You can have them where it says firefighter. These are like heavy. You know, this one here is only like 5 pounds, but you can also have them where they are designed and specifically for your thing. So here it says Fitness Quest 10 on this one here, which is our gym and our favorite gym training mentor, Todd Durkin. And so we wanted to give a little shout out to them. But I just wanted you guys to have a little bit visual about that. And for those of you who are listening, I'm going to let Sarah kind of explain as far as what that actually looks like. But she actually rolled out the Steelhose featured in the 2020 on the ABC Shark Tank to train firefighters for the better rigors of the job. And Sarah is an Iraq War veteran. So Sarah, thank you for your service. And she's also an All-American Collegiate Athlete, fitness professional, former volunteer firefighter, and mom of 2 little girls. In addition to her primetime Shark Tank debut, Sarah and FitFighter have been featured in Rolling Stone, Men's Health, Muscle and Fitness, ABC News, and Oxygen Magazine, and she's performed for clients of the likes of ESPN, FDNY, and the United States military. She lives in Port Washington, New York, with her husband, Ben Smith, who is a plastic and reconstructive surgeon, and her 2 young daughters, Emory and Arlyn, and her puppy, Louisiana. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. I'm so psyched to be here.
So what the heck? First of all, how did you get this in your idea? And do a little bit of explaining, for those who can see here with the Steelhose, how'd you come up with this concept? How'd you roll it out, and explain a little bit to what it actually looks like for those who are listening.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and don't worry, everybody should have a Steelhose with them. In fact, this one actually has that custom logo too from ESPN Women in Sports Summit, which you mentioned. One of my really wonderful experience. So yeah, the Steelhose is a beautiful tool because it's made of real fire hose. It's made of steel shot, which is a steel that flows, tiny little shot steel balls, not hard steel. They flow like water, but 5 times as dense. So you get this really nice semi-rigid structure that feels great to grip. It's nylon on the outside, rubber on the inside, and has this great grommet, which not only is great for storage just right on your coat rack next to your car keys, so you have strength at any time, but also great for resistance training. You could put a resistance band on the end of that, and all of a sudden you've got like a weighted handle for doing band work. So anybody who is already doing strength training, is of course going to compare this to other tools they've used, such as a dumbbell or a sandbag. The Steelhose takes on a life of its own because originally we were working to train grip strength and core stability, and we realized that the distribution of weight in this horizontal manner with grips all along the hose versus just in one fixed place on any other type of tool gives us this just endless possibilities and a very unique imbalanced structure. And I am here to say that imbalanced weight load is the wave of the future when it comes to strength training, because this is what is going to prepare 95% of us who aren't elite athletes with very, very specific, niche requirements for our movements. This is going to prepare most of us, the large majority, for the everyday movements of life, the demands on our bodies, lifting kids, hopping in the car, running up the stairs, putting our dishes away. I mean, it sounds funny, but shoveling snow, there's 11,000 injuries a year. This is the type of work we need to do. It's core stability, it's grip strength, and it's not so much that rote sort of, just bilateral, like lifting, that we are used to with dumbbells. So I'm here to create sort of the wave of the future with strength training for the large majority of people.
Yeah, I love this, especially that, you don't think about, your balance, and when you have to train being off balance, that it really helps you, those stabilizing muscles. I mean, we always hear about, even Todd talks about, the arm farm, and people working big, larger muscles, but it's those little intricate ones. Those are the ones that can have the injuries that can happen when you don't focus on some of those. And, as a retired police officer, I know that there were a lot of times you're sedentary in the car, and it's those dynamic movements, jumping out in a chase, or whatever things that you need to do. And same with all the first responders. You need to be able to have that burst and blast, and when you are working those smaller muscles to build that core strength, that really helps. And I love how you are talking about, just the everyday person. I mean, there's been this sedentary life that has kind of set in for a lot of people, which can lead to a lot of depression, and, fitness can really turn that around. And so I would love, I mean, we're both, mothers of two children, of two daughters. Mine are grown, so I actually have two granddaughters as well. So the next generation. But it's important to, what do we want to say to the moms out there, and talking about how, a lot of people I've talked to, they may still be in fear mode with a lot of things happening in society. They may be, less confident, post COVID. What is it that you can say to them as far as how they can start stepping more and embracing into life?
Yeah, it is. We've gotten, I think, very insular. We haven't had this connections, communication in the same way, that touch and feel of people, and being able to pull, the energy sort of in and out and around us from being with others. And I've noticed, as a very super extroverted social being, how much that's impacted me. And even though we get to talk to people all day long and use our voices, that has been really hard. And so that I step it, being able to put one foot in front of the other is requiring us to reach out to that village that we know is our support network, the true team that surrounds you, whether that's friends, family, colleagues, and create connections. And as much as possible, now that we're in a bit of that post-pandemic world, for us to really lean on those connections and actually experiment with them, and really talk about things we haven't talked about a little bit more deeply, get a little bit more personal, talk about some of the struggles, and know that, that probably that person is seeking that same connection, desperate for that. So that's the first thing that I would suggest, that for me has been fundamental in moving forward as an entrepreneur. I'm slogging through, an early stage company day to day as well. And then second thing I would say is really to be relying on our strength. We have to get up and we have to start moving. We have to get involved and engaged. We have to be standing with a strong posture, when we're talking, even if it's in a meeting or on a Zoom. We have to be engaging with our kids, and we have to be, seeking sort of that intellectual stimulation and the physical stimulation too. So that's very much the FitFighter philosophy, is absolutely to seek that, to move, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes a day. So those are two ways, one more about connection and one more about sort of the physical and mental, engagement and health and curiosity, that I think are really fundamental for us right now to just, to experiment and stay curious, and realize that fear is something that can propel us forward. One of my coaches, Kelly Watson, who actually knows Todd Durkin well, who you mentioned as well, she said something to me that was really has stuck with me a few months ago, because we've had our ups and downs in our business, and we've had to pivot in our strategy a number of times. And she said, what I was talking to her about, when you're feeling like a day where you really feel like you're hitting rock bottom, and you feel like the kids have had a temper tantrum in the morning, and you're not succeeding as a mom, and you've had a rough day in the company, and you are just, everything feels like it's going wrong. And she was like, you know what, Sarah? What a great opportunity that moment presents you to say, okay, I'm at rock bottom, sitting on the ground. That is a chance to propel upwards. So she was like, I want you to stand up and say, congratulations, Sarah. You hit the bottom. There's nowhere to go but up. And I sort of get goosebumps like a little bit, sharing that because it was so impactful for me. I was like, yeah, that's great advice. Because what else are you going to do? So anyway, that was really powerful for me.
Well, and there's such a fear, that comes from failure, right? Like, if this happens, then that could happen, and this kind of cascading of fear that's happening. And when you take from that perspective, if you feel like you're at rock bottom and you just acknowledge, okay, here I am, up is the only way to go, right? And we talk about failing forward and being able to have things in our space that allows us to look at things from a different perspective. You have such a unique way of, especially being a veteran and very physical type things and work that you've been in. I love your mindset aspect of it as well, in terms of operating as if you've already made it. Can you speak a little bit about the mindset aspect of just the survivability of skills, and not just surviving, but thriving, like being that vibrant person that you are?
Yeah, this is another one that, as an entrepreneur and probably as, a mom that maybe has, a dream that they're, wanting to achieve, but haven't started to lay the foundation yet. If you are someone, if you're someone who has sort of a really steady day-to-day, role, but you have aspirations, or you're sort of trying to come out of the ashes from COVID. Maybe you're a caregiver, who's constantly sort of having this sort of day-to-day burden on them. And, I always think about, well, we're never going to achieve that next, the top of that next peak. If we think about sort of climbing to that first false peak, and then that first false peak, and then eventually reaching, some sort of esoteric summit. The only way we're going to get there is if you can really feel what that feels like, and really live the lifestyle, and make the decisions, and have the energy and the confidence of being there. That's the only way we're ever going to actually achieve that, because otherwise we're sort of just taking these baby steps, sort of one step forward, two steps back. And this is hard. I definitely do not have this figured out. But again, talking with my advisors, my coaches, my mentors, this is something I've worked a lot on, because right now in a company, I have a lot of debt. I owe money to people. I have, challenges every day where things aren't working. I have team members, looking to me for answers. I'm the decision maker. I'm the guardian of my brand. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. And this is a lot of burden we each have. On all of us have this every day, especially after the last year and a half. And so what I try to do is to shift forward, to sort of, sit up onto my sits bones, invoke the physical, mental, and emotional, the sort of trifecta of us having this sort of, successful self, and just really try to say, okay, like I have to put myself in the mindset where I'm leading a company that's $1 billion company, where I am the CEO of a successful brand that's a household name in the fitness industry. We've got to fast forward and say, what does that feel like? How would I operate if I was that way? I would be more confident. I would probably make my decisions with an air of greater sort of structure and conviction. And so I try to invoke that, and I try to talk with my mentors about that, and be reminded of that confidence on those days where it's really challenging to find that within yourself.
Right. Well, and I love how you talk about the visualization. And if you can't see yourself there, like what do you need to do to get that picture in your space and in that vision, so that you know where you're going? And you did that for Shark Tank. Like how much visualization did you do, and how much preparation before you had those seconds there? And you talk about that moment as being something that you just felt the most confidence, and you just knocked it out of the park. Talk a little bit about that, about the preparation that, once you got there, you visualized it so much that once you got there, did it almost feel like a movie was rolling out, that you'd done this before? And, how were you able to pull on that confidence, especially with that large of a stage and that many eyes on you?
I am so happy to talk about the behind the scenes, behind that curtain of Shark Tank, because that show of any other, I think. I mean, maybe also, America's Got Talent or any of these sort of reality, the sort of evening reality shows that are about kind of your have this business angle or talent angle. It makes it look like things are a shiny object and an overnight success, this lightning in a bottle moment. And there's no question about it that it is, because when 5 million people get to see you on prime time, I mean, that absolutely launched our direct to consumer brand and our business and to the future. But also, there were ahead of that time 45 days of intense and diligent preparation where every single day I woke up and I started with a 3 to 5 minute meditation in the morning. And then I had 90 minutes of pitch practice. So that 2-minute pitch that you saw at the beginning of Shark Tank, I practiced that every single day for 90 minutes for 45 days before that show. So we're talking hundreds of hours of ultimately saying that same 2 minutes, and all of the physical, mental, and emotional that goes along with that. And then on top of that, I did preparation for, the question and answer, the part that's not so, that I was not so confident about, because I couldn't necessarily own that moment and know that, it was me in the limelight, sort of me, myself, and I in that moment. And so this rote preparation, I think that, I'm here to communicate that, that plus the commitment, plus of course, a little bit of luck, plus the mentorship, and, then ultimately, walking out with that mindset we talked about, the confidence in that mindset do ultimately lead to success. Not every time. You can prepare for a long, long time and then have a failure, but there's no question about it. And living, breathing example of, preparation directly leading to success. And what I think about is you want to think about preparing so that when you imagine that moment, in my case, those initial 2 minutes of that pitch that I just said, this is mine to own. And if this fails, that's on me, only me. You want to imagine that moment feeling like a joyful moment and an experience of sort of power and joy versus a sort of moment where you feel like you have this, like you have those sort of like those butterflies and those nerves. Like you're always going to have a little bit of that. There's no human being that before something big, that's that fight or flight in us. But if that is coupled with this anticipation and this expectation of creating joy and of building a moment of, adventure and success, then you know that you've done enough preparation. Like then okay, I can envision this as a time when I'm going to walk out there and I'm going to smile and look in the eye to each one of those sharks, for the 30 seconds before my pitch, and then just rock out, because this is going to be fun and this is what I do and I'm going to own this moment. That to me is a big distinction, because I've had moments I've prepared for and I think I either lacked the preparation or a different approach, or there was a component missing, because instead it was just like, hold on to your hold on to your tights, like hold on to your socks, and it didn't feel like, wow, this is just, I'm here to, stand up and be me and create this moment of joy. So that I think is a distinction I'm not sure that we ever talk about as we learn through our education system, as we're trained as professionals, in the workforce. I'm not sure we kind of make distinctions like that. Maybe performers do, artists and musicians that are on stage a lot. But life's a stage and all of us are on it, and we all have these differing level of moments like that. And I think you can translate into the everyday also.
Right. Absolutely. I think that these are all like transferable skills. I think you look at your life and the different aspects of it. And, we talk about having practice. I was thinking about one of my mentors, Bo Eason, who was a pro athlete, who now, speaks on stages, and he talks about having, perfect practice. And one of the things he said, when they were practicing, the athletes that excelled the most, the people that excel in their field and whatever it is they're doing, it's that dedication to the process, about the practicing. It's like the endless aspects of it, and that there's thousands of hours that go into where people see, that 30 seconds or those 2 minutes and think like you just walked in there and rolled it off the top of your tongue, right? But they don't see all of the, the tenacity and the grit and all the things that it takes behind the scenes to make that happen. And that, it's really someone who looks at it in terms of, the art of it, the game of it, that the practice, that's actually being in it, right? That by the time you actually get to the game or you get to the pitch, that's almost an afterthought in a way, because you've seen it so many times, you've done it so many times, that it's like you could tell, in that clip that you were confident, that there was no mincing of words. You had it because it was embodied within who you are. And so I just think that is such a great thing. And is that part of, did you grow up with that? I mean, was that something in your training? I mean, having, military training and also being an athlete, right? These, having discipline and these kind of things are part of the deal. But was that you as a kid?
Wow, I love it. I wish my parents were here to answer that question, and kind of, from their perspective. Like, I think that I was raised watching that in both of my parents. My dad was an entrepreneur. I watched him start and grow a company. He was a person that just had this. He wore rose-colored goggles. He still does. My dad's 80 now, and my mom is 72. And just both of them, I think I was really fortunate as a child to not only, did I have a really fortunate background, great education, unconditionally loving family, but I also had an example set for me through both of them that, of that. And so I think that translated into the desire to want to do things like be in the military and not feel, to our sort of topic of fear, not sort of like to be able to take that step and take that risk. I think that we are inherently able to take more risk than we think. And I think that we don't push the envelope I think the large majority of us don't push our envelope. We're sort of given this, I think we are given, I think through our education system and not having enough, experiential education and not having enough opportunities, I think, to experience risk and success and failure in safe environments. And unfortunately, I think it's actually almost getting just like a little bit worse in that we're placing like more and more pressure, on younger kids to be successful. And in some strange way, almost feels like, I feel like that then makes people sort of like not, makes them risk averse, makes them sort of not, because they're sort of like, oh my gosh, like there's a lot riding on this, I have to succeed. And I think I was just raised in a really supportive environment where it was okay to take risks, and you knew that you were going to be loved and supported, even if you took that and you failed. And so I think that translated into then a great sort of like amateur and professional growth for me as a person, where then I played those sports in high school, and then that translated into like, okay, I'm going to play sports, at a competitive level in college. And then, okay, wow, the military seems very intriguing to me. And okay, like I've been given this level of confidence and, sort of love of trying, being challenged and taking risks, that made that seem like something that was a great fit. And absolutely in the military, I mean, I have crazy stories about, arriving to my first unit ever. And I mean, gosh, we could have a whole nother sort of show talking about some of my experiences as, a woman, a female soldier and leader, in the military and some things like this. But, I remember arriving, and one of the first things that one of my soldiers said to me was one of my squad leaders. And he said, listen, I'm just going to tell you that, we just had a really bad experience with our former platoon leader, and you're taking over command from a person, and you have really big shoes to fill. And not only that, he said, and also just let you know that we were kind of wishing that it was going to be a dude. I mean, can you imagine? You're like,
I can.
Yeah, you can, right? Because and because a lot of us has experienced that in just day-to-day life. And so I'm sitting here like, okay, I'm 24 years old and I've just arrived overseas on my first deployment. I'm taking over command of this platoon where, the majority of the platoon is, older and wiser than I am. It's just the military. It's just how it's set up. And they're telling me that they wish I was a dude. I mean, talk about walking into the wolf den,
Yeah.
So it's moments like that where you gotta there's no choice but to sort of combine the way you act in that present moment with humility and with confidence, and then also leaning on that sort of past of saying, well, I know I have love and support, even if I totally crash and burn here at first. Like I'll figure this out and I'll lean on the team. And so just experiences like that went on and on and on throughout the 20 years following, and into the volunteer fire service and through my business life. And so I think that it's that combination of, as you noted, like our very early, who we are as people from a very early age, and then how that fuels the choices that we make and the experiences that we have. And I do believe that FitFighter is a manifestation of my entire life and all of those experiences. And so it's very deeply personal for me in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and those are defining moments, the decisions you say, the thing that comes out of your mouth at that time, you either establish yourself as a leader, right? Or they see how they can push the buttons and see what can happen. I mean, when I first started with the police department, I was the only woman on my squad. And in fact, speaking about some of those things where you're like, did that really happen? I remember getting called into my sergeant's office. This was my first night. And he just said, yeah, all the girlfriends and wives of the guys on the squad don't want you riding with their husband. And so are you okay being a John unit, which is a single unit out in the hood? and of course, I'm like, sure, of course, I've got this, right? I think no problem. But it's like those kind of moments, like when you can get through hard things and you see that, I mean, the first time being shot at, right? How do you explain the sound of a bullet, right? And what you do in those moments and happen. And a lot of people maybe have not experienced some of the field training that you and I have experienced, but everything that you do, it either elevates you to that level of like, okay, I can do that, right? And the more that you can build more of those experiences up, you build that fortitude and you build that tenacity, and you can now take all of those life experiences and be able to apply them to it. And it's being that victor versus a victim, right? And how you choose to do things. And I love how you talk about having superpowers. I'd love for you to talk about what yours are and how do you focus on them.
Yeah, I think everybody should take stock personally and then ask friends and family of what they think that your superpowers are, because I think that that's a really wonderful list to compile, and one that can then, morph and change. And that's the other thing that's really cool as we move forward. So yeah, my superpowers, I have three superpowers that I think about. One is that what I call sprinkling steel. And that is really bringing energy, life, vigor, sunshine to people, all throughout the day. I mean, of course, like every human, I have my moments of low energy and, rest. I also am a person who feeds so much off the energy of others that I can just wander into the grocery store, and somehow I just find someone who, you lock eyes with them and you sort of smile, this big smile, and say hello with a boisterous hello. And literally people on a regular basis, as I live my day-to-day life, are always sort of cock their head and say, wow, someone's happy today. I mean, that happens to me all the time. And I don't think about it that way. I'm just saying hello and giving them sort of a wave. And it's not because I'm always having a great day. Like I've just described, I've had some pretty crappy days. And in fact, a lot of them. And now, it's ups and downs all the time. But it's just because it's a superpower. I just give granted that, I think, at birth, because I lock with humans and other people and feed off of their energy, and I'm able to sort of bounce them back. And so that's really beautiful. The second superpower I have is this ability to, I think, operate in a team setting and really lean on teams and sort of understand the dynamics of teams and groups of people in a way that has made me really adaptable and flexible. So I think about all this experience we just talked about. And, those, I mean, you don't survive as a woman in fire service, if you can't sort of ride that fine line between, you're not going to take any garbage from someone, of course, but you're also going to realize that everybody is, coming at an experience or a person from their own angle. And I think the ability to walk that line is ultimately your ability to make change, because if you're too adamantly against or opposed to someone else's point of view, or not willing to let them into your heart and to your mind, then you're not going to be successful with ultimately, reaching them. And so I think that's really superpower number 2. And superpower number 3 is I have a really, I think about physical movement and strength in a different way that I think that a lot of people have. And that's led me to think about, and that's led ultimately to FitFighter. The training philosophy that I have, I believe that you can be both joyful and highly competitive all at the same time. I believe that you can find joy in movement and build strength through experiment and curiosity, rather than just, the sets and reps. I believe that there's these juxtapositions that can exist. You can be both serious and also silly at the same time. And I think that that's enabled a really special sort of approach to my training and the way I think about strength, and the way that I know that people have more strength than they think. And so I think that everybody should think through what their superpowers are, and then really deliver on them, because we have lots of weaknesses and limitations too, and we need to be bolstered up by other people's superpowers. So I rely on the superpowers of others that are complementary to mine, and in order to be successful. And I try to really embrace that, because I do have, I think, some stark limitations, especially like as a CEO, building a company for the first time. I don't have a lot of experience with that. It's more as, an inventor and creator, and someone who had a big inspiration. So I think superpowers are really special and important. So yeah.
Nice. So how is it that, you've got 2 young daughters who are looking up to you and seeing how mom is doing things? How is it been like in your home, as far as transferring the competitive spirit, having creativity, kind of having that balance, of you said, of silliness and seriousness? What have they embraced to take on as their own characteristics?
My daughters it's so fascinating to watch them so keenly. I mean, I'm assuming you had this too, but so keenly watching me and my husband, as we sort of navigate our own lives, the things we say, the things we do, the tone of voice that we use, they just mirror and mimic everything. And so it's fun to see them like marry that with their own little unique personalities. Emery's a little bit more conservative. Arlyn's going to be my rugby player. They're definitely their own people, but they also, I see them even talking with their friends, and I talk with their teachers, and sort of hearing, they'll sort of say these funny things that they say and the actions they take and do. And you just think, wow, they're such a sponge, and you're that influence on, you're the sort of maximum influence on them. And so they are growing up. I love that they are growing up believing and thinking things that I think that, all other humans should think about. So, I mean, for one, just on sort of like a comical note, they think that everybody has fire hose in every room in their house. We literally have steel hoses in every room, like including bedrooms. Like they're just around, because I'm always like doing a workout somewhere else because someone's watching TV or it's raining outside. I'm always like out on the deck, running my Friday lives. I do a little bit of strength work here and there with whatever I'm showing people. I'm doing podcasts. I have like them sitting on the piano bench. And so little things like that, they're seeing us go in and out of our lives, and things I do and things I'm creating. And they think that that's, what everybody does. And I love that, because it doesn't have to be that everybody has hoses in every room in their house, but it is symbolic of an idea that I have, which is that woven into the fabric of our lives should be movement and strength, and all of these, some of the qualities we've been talking about that helps us to get over that sedentary nature of our lives, and move forward and move up. And, congratulations, you've hit bottom, let's go. All of these things have to be characterized by a really different physical approach to our lives. And so things like that I think are really great. They know the office as a studio and a factory. They think that someone's office is a place where you go and run workouts in front of computers, and you make things, and there's sewing machines. They know that the people who work for me can sew. They're like, oh man, like Patrick's ear, got pulled off, like the dog pulled Patrick's ear off. Do you think William can fix it? I mean, I love that they think that way,
Right.
So I think it's a beautiful manifestation of what they're watching. I know they'll become their own people, but I love that I can impart on them things that I think are really positive.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and speaking of what you create in your home, one of the things I love to ask my guests is we have different experiences in different rooms of our home. We have different experiences in our office versus our bedroom versus our kitchen. What is your favorite room in your home and why?
What a fun question. My favorite room is definitely our family room. It's our playroom. It's got a big couch. I'm a person who wants a wall-to-wall carpet, in every room in the house. And so it's just a place where that's the node. That's where we convene. It has the door out to the deck outside. You can take a deep breath. So yeah, it's just got there's a lot of good vibes that happen there, and you're going to gravitate there if if you have a moment.
Nice. I love that. Well, I know that our listeners are going to want to stay in contact with you. They are going to want to have one of their own Fit Fighters in their home. How can they do all of that?
You can find us. The best place to start is fitfighter.com, because they'll get to learn a little bit more and peruse some of the classes and opportunities we have to train. This is absolutely a programmatic approach. Steelhose is not just a great strength tool, but we have an entire system with world-class pros who are 24/7 on demand through our platform. I run my Friday lives from that platform too. And so that's a great place. We also have a lot of fun on our Instagram at FitFighters. Our handle at FitFighter Pro is all movements and education. So it's a great place if you have any personal trainers or fitness professionals that are out there listening. And then you can also find me from a business perspective. I do write articles and share more of the business side on LinkedIn. So you can find me at Sarah Apgar on LinkedIn too. So lots of ways. You can't possibly miss us if you look up FitFighter online.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, and I'd like to just end with our theme this year are, people who are being a force for good in the world. And so, Sarah, how are you being a force for good?
Well, I am just trying to sprinkle steel everywhere I go. And that's my new sort of term now that I feel like that steel inside our steel hoses is sort of this manifestation of, my energy in my life. And I think that's going to go a long way, especially right now as we're all trying to, claw our way back from a really challenging year.
Right. I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your vision and your path and your wisdom. And I so appreciate you are such a great example of, you have shared before that you can still make an impact in the world when it feels like there's so much already out there, that there's still room for good, brilliant ideas, and that you've created that space. So I just want to thank you for that bright spot that you are in the world and those superpowers that you bring. So thank you so much for being here on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so awesome to chat and reflect. You took me all the way back to childhood. And so thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you got it. And to our listeners, thank you for being here and being part of Positive Messages. And, we would really love for you to subscribe. If you have any questions, make sure that you tag both myself and Sarah. We're happy to answer any questions. Make sure that you check out fitfighter.com and you get one for yourself. And if you don't have one in your gym, make sure that your trainer checks it out and get it in there, because that is such an important tool to have. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye-bye.